What's up, guys? So, breakfast with Bobby. Everything Bobby Thompson, purely unadulterated as a pro-strongman. That's a lie. Not purely unadulterated, because then I would be canceled and the world would realize why I only have 5 friends. However, that does not really matter for this video. We'll talk about it later. However, what this is going to be is an opportunity for me to show you how well I can't cook. Yeah, we're going to do that in my somewhat messy kitchen while I just kind of give y'all my thoughts and stuff. And we're going to start off with something that wasn't received too warmly. I put up on my story about how amateurs didn't necessarily need to be rushing to use elephant bars, mammoth bars, and all the bar extenders and that fun stuff. And I think people who were offended by it fall into one of two categories. They didn't understand what I was trying to say, which good possibility that's the majority of them, or the shoe fits and they need to learn how to deadlift. Either one. It's not mayonnaise, by the way, it's beef tallow. But getting back to point, you know, you never see somebody purchasing a log that's known to be a more difficult log to clean or to press with, right? Something similar to an Austrian oak, or, you know, one of the best logs in the world, or the best log in the world. It's the Big Dog Strong log. However, it's 240-ish pounds empty. Like, it's a hard log. It's a big log. So you don't see people going out of their way to buy more contest style equipment that makes it a bit harder. But the moment something that comes out that allows them to lift more weight, and strongmen in particular, they jump at it. And I understand the business side of this, where you want to give the amateurs as close as an experience as professional as possible. It's a sales tactic for equipment, and it's also a cool thing to do as an amateur. I totally get it. However, we can't look over the fact that if you are gaining confidence from a 5 to 10% increase on a bar, or from a bar alone, and you're gaining confidence in bad habits, you're completely shortcutting your ultimate ceiling in terms of what your top strength is going to be. You're not giving yourself any time to get good before you start using things that will make it easier. I guess it's very similar to, slightly comparable to raw powerlifting versus equipped powerlifting, depending on what your thoughts are there. Slightly, not totally comparable. Slightly. Don't eat me alive, Reddit. However, no. So, furthermore, I then went to say, you know, I hope strongman, you know, continues to turn itself into a real sport, which is ultimately, you know, it's ultimately, I think, what everyone's goal should be. However, when I see bars like this becoming more and more common in amateur videos, or I guess kind of like just starting pro videos, it makes me wonder, like, we're not going to see these numbers go anywhere. We're not going to, because we're going to have a bunch of specialists with really bad habits that are accustomed to equipment that just made moving the weight easier, which, again, the circus element to strongman, move as much weight as possible, right? I totally get that. But it wasn't until recently moving as much weight as possible became easier in strongman than not. That's a very kind of new thing. The lighter things that were always easier were always more awkward and larger. But now we're making one of the hardest and staple movements easier. And it's more times than not, that's the case. And I'm not against deadlift variations. I'm not saying they should all be done with calibrated plates and stiff bars. But I am saying I'm noticing a trend, and it's kind of hard to deny it's happening. So for the sake of the sport, and the sake, excuse me, the sake of like the deadlifts in the sport, I really think we need to have a kind of a reality check with the over amateur use of elongated bars that make deadlifting easier just because it makes somebody feel cool. Now, this is my opinion. Do what makes you happy. It's your money. If that's how you want to spend it, spend it. You simply may not see the sport the same way I do. However, it's really kind of hard to deny what's happening. So, and anyways, I was never a normal amateur to begin with. I always knew I was there as an amateur to be an amateur for as long as it took for me not to be. So I think if I had gotten there and not gotten further, it would be more fun oriented. I'm speaking in terms of, I hope one day we have Major League Strongman. I hope we, I just spilled all that spice everywhere. Yeah, this is why I need an adult 24/7 help. No, but anyways, back on point. I hope we have strongman in various weight classes signing, I don't want to say multi-million-dollar contracts. I don't think that's going to happen. But it would be cool if we saw some 6-figure plus contracts going out. But to do that, we have to push this as a sport. And there's a reason why in Major League Baseball, they don't swing metal bats. They'd be hitting home run every time. Like, adjustments have to be made as somebody progresses in the sport to the equipment, and that has to have some kind of logical sense to it. I hope that kind of makes sense as well. As far as the amateurs, and really anyone who is offended by this, I'm not calling out promoters. My feelings are not on the side of that of a promoter. I have friends that promote. I don't help promote. I do help run a few shows a year, or at least I kind of stick my 2 cents in when it's asked for. At the same time, I'm looking at this from the side of somebody as an athlete, and I'm not saying we should make it raw or powerlifting. I'm not saying that at all. But there needs to be an element of balance between the circus and then the sport. And it just seems like that's getting lost rather quickly at the amateur level. So, anyways, that's just my opinion. But back to the two populations that are offended by the statement. One, if you're a promoter and offended, I'm not calling shots at anyone. You guys operate at a loss like 99% of the time, and a lot of people don't realize how valuable you are. I personally do. That's why I don't talk shit about promoters unless I see athletes getting robbed. So promoters, this isn't about you. This is not coming from a promoter standpoint. As an athlete though, if you're an amateur who is offended by this, one, you're just not understanding what I'm saying. And at this point, I don't have any more time to donate to that process. So best of luck, watch the video again, talk to some friends, read a book. However, if you are offended by this and you do understand what I'm saying, and you're in a really unique position of personal growth, and I can't find a spatula, and I gotta flip my eggs. Life is chaos. I haven't even made a toast yet. But if you're an amateur who's offended by this, then you do understand it, then I'm sorry. But you need to learn how to deadlift. It's a thing. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel cool for doing a thing, but if you're an amateur who is offended by this and you understand what I'm saying, then we just don't see the sport the same. And that's totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, if we do see the sport the same and you are somebody who thinks they want to do this as a living of some variety, you need a reality check. So anyways, signing off because I clearly cannot do videos and cook breakfast. Next week, Breakfast with Bobby, our goal is going to be to actually get the toast done too. So yeah, in Grant,